I found out my family was planning my father's birthday without me late at night, in a moment that felt completely ordinary. My phone suddenly lit up with a conversation I wasn't part of. For months the family group chat had existed quietly, and now it was alive with plans, restaurant ideas, guest lists, and jokes that only they understood. Everyone was there. My parents, my brother, even relatives my father barely spoke to anymore. I read every message carefully, waiting for my name to appear somewhere in the thread. It never did. I said nothing. I didn't ask why. But 2 days later, on the morning of the celebration, a call from the bank reached my father, and that was the moment when everything they had quietly built began to pause in midair. At first, I didn't understand what I was feeling. It wasn't loud anger. It was something quieter, something that settled slowly like dust in a silent room. Being ignored rarely begins with drama. It starts with small things that are easy to explain away. That night my phone buzzed close to midnight while I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, pretending to focus on a spreadsheet. The family group chat was glowing on my screen, the same chat I rarely muted because part of me still liked believing I belonged there. "Dad's birthday is coming soon," Melissa wrote. Then another message appeared, and another. Plans were forming in real time. Someone suggested a restaurant. Another person proposed a private room. My brother reacted with a thumbs up emoji. My mother added a small heart. My father's name appeared again and again in the thread, tagged, mentioned, celebrated. Mine never appeared once. I told myself it meant nothing. Maybe they were busy. Maybe they assumed I already knew. Maybe they would ask me later. That had always been the explanation I gave myself. I was the quiet one in the family, the one who had moved away and called less often, the one everyone described as independent, as if that word explained every distance between us. I scrolled slowly through the messages. 15 people discussing dates, menus, and gifts. I read every line, even the ones that stung, because I wanted to make sure I wasn't imagining the omission. But my name never appeared. Eventually I turned my phone face down on the table and stared into the dim kitchen light. I didn't feel furious. Not yet. I just felt strangely invisible, like I had been standing in the same room all along while everyone else talked around me. Over the next few days the chat continued without pause. Each vibration of my phone brought another update about the birthday celebration. A simple brunch plan turned into a full afternoon event. Someone volunteered to organize the cake. Someone else suggested decorations. My brother confirmed he could take the day off work. My mother reminded everyone about my father's favorite wine. I kept reading. I never responded. At first I waited for the moment when someone would finally notice me. A casual message. "Claire, can you make it?" Or even the simple assumption that I was already included. That moment never arrived. Then Melissa posted a reservation list. I counted the names without meaning to. 12 people. Aunts, cousins, and even Melissa's boyfriend, someone my father had met exactly twice. My name wasn't there. That was the moment the realization settled in. This wasn't forgetfulness. It was a decision. I thought about speaking up. I even typed a message once, a simple question asking whether I should keep the weekend free. But I already knew how the conversation would unfold. There would be an awkward pause, a rushed apology, a thin explanation that would make me feel like I was forcing my way into a place where I clearly didn't belong. So I stayed quiet. On the morning before the celebration, Melissa shared a photo of gift bags lined across her living room floor. Bright paper, ribbons, carefully arranged surprises. Looking at that photo, something finally clicked into place. They weren't forgetting me. They were planning around me. I closed the chat and continued with my day, carrying the strange weight of being close enough to watch everything unfold while being far enough away that no one noticed my absence. What my family never understood was that my silence wasn't emptiness. It was privacy. For years they assumed I was drifting through life, following some unclear path that never seemed to lead anywhere impressive. I never corrected them. Not because I couldn't, but because explaining myself had always felt pointless. Every time I tried, the conversation quickly turned into advice I hadn't asked for or concern that sounded suspiciously like doubt. So eventually I stopped sharing. What they never saw were the nights I spent building something quietly from the ground up. The long hours, the careful risks, the decisions made without applause or encouragement. Success doesn't always announce itself, especially in families that only recognize achievements they can easily understand. They also didn't know how often I had stepped in when things went wrong. The short-term loans. The paperwork signed quietly. The late-night conversations with bankers when the family business ran into trouble again. I never made a performance out of it. I never asked for gratitude. I told myself I was helping because that's what family does. At least at the beginning. Over time something changed. My support became expected rather than appreciated. Money moved quietly from my accounts to theirs, and the relief on their side never turned into curiosity about where it came from. They believed the version of me they had created. The distant daughter, the unreliable one, the one whose life didn't quite matter enough to involve. Reading their birthday plans like an outsider, I finally understood something important. I wasn't invisible because I lacked value. I was invisible because they had never truly looked. Several times I almost broke my silence. My fingers hovered above the keyboard, the cursor blinking in the group chat like an open door waiting for me to step through. I could have typed something simple. A greeting. A casual question. Nothing dramatic. But I didn't. Because asking to be included carries a quiet cost. It turns your presence into a negotiation and your worth into something that needs justification. I had spent years explaining myself to people who had already decided who I was. This time I chose differently. I decided that if they wanted me there, someone would say so. If I truly mattered, my absence would be noticed without a reminder. Remaining silent wasn't passive. It was deliberate. The morning of my father's birthday arrived quietly. Sunlight slipped through the kitchen window as I poured coffee and stood in the stillness of my apartment. Somewhere across the city my family was probably preparing for the celebration, dressing nicely, checking reservations, reminding each other not to be late. I moved through my own routine calmly, showering, getting dressed, sitting at my desk as if it were any ordinary weekday. The group chat remained silent for once. I opened a folder on my computer that I had prepared the night before. Inside were documents I knew by heart, agreements signed without ceremony, numbers that told a story no one else had ever bothered to read. Looking at them, I didn't feel angry. I felt clear. This wasn't about revenge or humiliation. It was about alignment. If I wasn't family enough to be invited, then I wasn't family enough to quietly carry responsibilities that no one acknowledged. I made one phone call. The conversation was short and professional. No raised voices. No hesitation. When it ended, I leaned back in my chair and breathed slowly. Outside the window life continued as if nothing had changed. But by the time my family gathered at the restaurant and lifted their glasses for the first toast, everything had already begun moving. It started with small disruptions. Automatic alerts sent to people who were used to everything working smoothly. A payment that suddenly failed. A transfer that paused mid-process. A card that declined when it should have worked. Then the calls began. My phone lit up on the desk. First my father's name. Then my mother's. Then my brother's. I didn't answer immediately. Not because I feared the conversation, but because I already knew how it would sound. Confusion would come first. Then frustration. Then the quiet assumption that fixing the problem was somehow my responsibility. The group chat came alive again with urgent messages. Questions, speculation, rising panic. Something was clearly wrong. Finally my mother called again, and this time I answered. Her voice trembled with worry. Something's wrong, she said quickly. The bank froze the accounts. I know, I replied calmly. There was a long silence on the line. My father took the phone. I could hear noise behind him, restaurant chatter, glasses clinking, relatives trying to pretend the celebration was still normal. What did you do? He asked sharply. I leaned back in my chair. I stopped doing something, I said. Another silence followed, heavier this time. You can't do this, he insisted. This is family. I almost laughed, though there was no humor in the sound. I wasn't family when you planned your birthday, I said quietly. My name never appeared once. Someone in the background stopped talking. My brother's voice cut in softly, uncertain now. We didn't think it was that serious. That's the point, I answered. You didn't think about me at all. Then my father asked a question that changed the tone of the entire conversation. You've been helping us, he said slowly. The loans, the accounts, that was you? Yes. Another long pause. Why didn't you tell us? Because I shouldn't have needed to. I said what was true once. Then I ended the call. For the first time in years, they were the ones left facing silence. The panic faded eventually. Messages replaced frantic calls. Some were apologetic. Some were cautious. Others were uncertain, as if everyone had suddenly realized that the story they believed about me had never been accurate. I didn't rush to respond. For days I simply lived my life the way I always had. Work, walks, quiet evenings without watching my phone. When I finally spoke again, my message was simple. This isn't punishment, I explained. It's a boundary. I wasn't negotiating my place in the family through money anymore. Either they saw me, or they didn't. Some apologies felt sincere. Others felt rushed. I didn't analyze them closely. I only made one thing clear. The quiet support I had provided for years was over. Whatever relationship existed next would have to be built on honesty instead of obligation. And surprisingly, once I stepped back, everything felt lighter. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the next crisis call or the next unspoken expectation. I wasn't organizing my life around fixing problems no one else acknowledged. I realized something simple but powerful. Being needed isn't the same as being valued. Silence can be a boundary, and love that requires you to disappear isn't love at all. Choosing myself didn't make me selfish. It made me whole. Over time, our family settled into something different. Not perfect, not easy, but more honest than before. Some relationships slowly softened. Others remained distant. My father eventually apologized, not with a grand speech but through small efforts. A message asking how I was. A call that ended without a request. My mother learned to sit through uncomfortable conversations instead of smoothing them away. My brother tried, in his quiet way, to show up differently. Melissa took longer, and that was okay. The biggest lesson wasn't theirs. It was mine. I learned that family shouldn't require you to erase yourself in order to belong. I didn't destroy anything that day. I simply stopped holding everything together alone. And when I finally stepped back, something unexpected happened. For the first time in years, my life had space again. Space for respect. Space for honesty. And space for a version of myself that no longer needed permission to exist.